I'm joined with my father. My I'm your namesake. Like,
um, Trustee Thomas McKnight Sr.
oh, he gave the title. He trustee. I thought you retired the trustee. I thought you like trustee emeritus.
I am, but I still hold that
Oh,
emeritus and trustee.
what does that mean? Like
It,
trustee emeritus.
it means you can do the work as you want to, or need to, or as you can, depends on your health and the things that you can do. Some things I don't know how to do, so I don't get involved in doing the things I don't know how to do.
So you don't try to do it.
Right. And to make a big mess of it, then somebody got to spend some money to get it fixed.
Right. So do trustees y'all handle the finances of the church? What do trustees do?
Yeah, well, the trustees, they do handle the finances, not all of them, but we have a finance committee, and we have trustees on that committee. They handle all the finances of the church, the upkeep of the building itself, and if something breaks, we see to it getting fixed if we can't fix it. And different things that the church asked us to look into doing to improve the church or to add on to something. We go and get the prices and come back, get it voted through if the church really still want it. And once it's voted through, we see it go out and finish, see the project all the way to the finish.
All the way to the end. Yeah. Your name is on, well, it's our name, but your name is on the building for when Rock Spring built the
new
new
sanctuary, yes.
How long ago was that? That was
23 years ago.
23 years ago.
Yes, fourth Sunday in June would be 23 years. We had our first service in there.
Yeah, I remember that day. It was a it was a long project to get that building fixed.
Yes, it
A
was.
whole lot. Get that building on.
I was one of
going.
the trustees that signed the loan at the bank for it.
So your name is literally on the building.
Oh, yes.
That's what's up. So we're going to ask some questions, or I'm going to ask some questions to my dad, and I'm going to use this site called Remento that has some good questions that I was just reviewing and looking over, and I think they'll be good conversation pieces to start, just different things to ask. And you can ask your parents these questions too, those who's watching. Or if you're a parent yourself, an older parent, and you have children that's my age, and you want your children to ask you these questions, you can have them ask you these questions, and you record it. I think it'll be good because it's always good to have these things recorded because you never know. Like, just as we get older, and as the grandkids, your grandkids, my kids get older. It'll be good to have these things on record.
Right.
So don't say anything embarrassing about me. Try to put me out here.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do you like that.
Nah, you would.
See, you asking questions now that I don't even know what they're going to be. You might put me on the spot.
Right. I mean, they ain't bad questions. So.
I know you ain't a bad guy. And I hope I wasn't a bad father, so maybe you won't give me no questions I can't answer truthfully.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't in jail, so.
Right, and that's a blessing. I ain't never been in jail myself.
I ain't killed nobody. So, all right. First question I'll ask is, what did you eat for lunch at school as a child?
Wow. A little bit of everything, basically. But at the time when I was a child in school, they had a complete kitchen staff that cooked all the meals. They didn't have anybody ordering anything already pre-cooked like they do now. So they had cooks, chef that was over the whole kitchen, and she saw to all the cooks doing their jobs. And we would have, spaghetti, meatloaf, fried chicken, fish, and all kinds of, vegetables, desserts. And we have milk, water. Sometimes you can get orange juice. But, it was around, full-course meal.
Yeah.
For 35 cents.
35 cents.
Exactly.
They don't do that no more.
Oh, no.
I mean, I can't lie. I mean, our kids, they eat for free for now. That's until somebody
That's the
changes
best
something.
lunch, that free lunch.
Well, it's free because, like, the government has put stipends in. So, like,
Right.
they're funding everything for now. Preferably, it stays that way. My younger kids go to school, too, because lunch is expensive this day and age.
Very much.
All right. So I think I kind of know this, but what's the first major news story you remember from your childhood?
Wow. First major news story that I can remember, there was two that come to mind. When Sam Cooke was murdered and when Dr. King was assassinated. Those are the two. And the very first was when I was about 3 years old, when President Kennedy was assassinated. That was the first. And I was 3 years old, and I remember seeing on TV the flag draped coffin and everything, and his family and his son standing there, and all the Secret Service when they pulled the casket off and walked it into the back of the hearse. It was amazing because I understood at 3 years old what was going on. And then not long after that, Sam Cooke was killed in 1964, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that. And then, of course, April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was assassinated.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. And then shortly after his assassination, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. It was about 2 months later.
What was the country like when he was assassinated? If you remember, like
when Dr. King was assassinated,
it
was chaos. We had a curfew, we had to be in at a certain time at night. You couldn't even be in the yard at one time. And then they did let children play in the yard a little while longer, but you couldn't go out your yard. And if you got caught anywhere that wasn't where you supposed to be, you had to have a real good reason or you went to jail.
Oh, I'm about to say you can't go to jail at 8, but times were wild back then.
Back then, they
would throw it anyway.
They probably take you downtown and call your parents to come and get you and give them a citation or something. I don't know, because I was 8 years old when that happened.
Yeah. So, what was what's a song that you remember most or most associate with your teenage years?
Wow, my teenage years, and I always had listened to gospel music from the time I was real young up until now. I still listen to it. But when I got into my teenage years and started trying to, feel myself as a young man and, going through the adolescent stages and all of that, I always had been and still like a lot of slow love songs. And I like some fast dance music, but I always made gospel my number one music. But when it came down to songs like Manhattan's Kiss and Say Goodbye, when it come down to the secular music, and I used to like the Temptations, I still do.
Yeah, you do.
And I love the Temptations, Silent Night.
Right.
And when it came down to gospel, my favorite gospel groups were the Dixie Hummingbirds, the Sensational Nightingales are my top group. And then I also like the Brooklyn All-Stars and Swan Silvertones, Swan and Quintet, you name them.
Yeah.
Shirley Caesar.
Yeah. All the gospel.
I can carry you back when Sam Cooke was with the Soul Stirrers.
Soul Stirrers, yeah. That's my favorite.
For him, R.H. Harris.
Yep. I love Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers.
Oh, yeah. That stuff still lives today.
Yep, it do. So, talk about the kind of child that you were.
I tried to be a good child. I was a little mischievous, but mostly...
So that's where Marley gets it from.
Probably. But mostly, I was more of a troublesome child because of illnesses and things, because when I was about 6 months old, I became allergic to milk. Couldn't drink milk, couldn't eat certain baby foods. So Mama had to feed me from the table with soft scrambled eggs, real soft, and mashed potatoes, stuff like that, because I couldn't eat hardly no baby food. And then after that, I got past that stage. At 6 years old, I went blind on Christmas Day for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then that found out later on that I was going blind and it was supposed to be permanent. And then they did find a doctor that could cure it, but I have to wear glasses the rest of my life. I used to have bad nosebleeds anytime, day or night. Wake up in the middle of the night, had to be rushed to the hospital because the nosebleeding couldn't stop it. And then at July 4th, I got struck by lightning in 1970.
I remember you telling me about that.
And, all kinds of things was going on that didn't happen to some of the average children. But there was other children that had more happen than I did.
Yeah.
But getting struck by lightning, ain't too many children ever had that.
Right.
And the reason why I got the worst end of the deal, because I wasn't the only one that was struck, but I was the last one that it hit.
Yeah.
and it went to work.
You said went to work. I
Yeah.
always wondered because as a kid, I used to have nosebleeds all the time. I didn't know you used to get nosebleeds all the time as a kid. So that's where I got it from.
Yeah.
Why you say nothing then?
You never asked. Well, then too, when you came along as a kid and you got up to the ages where you start having a lot of nosebleeds, I was driving trucks. And when we talked and did a lot of things on the phone, and then when I came home, nosebleed was probably the last thing on your mind, and I didn't even know anything about it.
Right. Bleeding from the nose, don't even know what's going on. Okay. So, how old were you when you became a dad?
When I became a dad, I was 26 years old and ready to turn 27. May 1st, 1987, the doctor said it's a girl and had me my little Tamisha.
Y'all didn't know before?
No, we didn't know before. We knew with you before because your mom was having some problems. With Tamisha, she didn't have any. And so with you, they had told us that you may be either stillborn or you may be mentally retarded or deformed or something. And so they had to do a lot of tests. And when they come back and say, it's a boy and he's going to be fine, I said, his name going to be Thomas Jr. And you've been TJ long before you came out the womb.
Right. So I always tell people, because I always joke about this. So what was my name supposed to be other than Thomas Jr.?
Oh, wow.
How did y'all get to my name?
Your mama wanted to name you Willie Howard. And I decided, well, if you're going to name him Willie, give him his second name is Nathaniel. And she said, why? I said, well, that's my daddy's second name. Her uncle named was Willie Howard, and my dad named was Willie Nathaniel. She said, nah, we ain't going to do that. And so she said, it's going to be TJ.
Yeah, I would name after two people, my uncle and my grandfather, which would have been funny.
And it would have been look more like you were just named after your grandfather because you would have had his whole name,
right?
Willie Nathaniel McKnight. And your uncle, Willie Howard, you just had the first name.
Yeah. So did y'all were y'all expecting another child before Tamisha and before she was born?
Yes. Actually, we didn't know the first time your mama had a miscarriage. About 15 months after we were married, she had a miscarriage, and we never knew until she went to the doctor because of some other things, and he asked her, when did you have your miscarriage? We thought he had been drinking or something, so we didn't know. But he showed us that she had one. And he said it was so early, you probably just in your regular monthly. And so, but it showed up. But we didn't know. And then in 1986, we found out we was expecting a baby. And she lost that one in June. And we didn't know what that was going to be either, but we did hear the heartbeat and everything. And so when the doctors told us in September, now you can try to add to your family again.
Y'all went to work.
Actually, he told us that before September, actually, because she told me around the end of September. She called me, I was at work. Guess what? I said, what? You going to be a father? I couldn't wait to get off work. I was happy. The supervisor just told me, just go home. You ain't going to be working out the rest of the day.
So what was your thoughts when you all lost the first baby and it was the second one, right? With a heartbeat. Right. So what were your thoughts? Like, how did you feel as a man and as a expectant father? Like, did you lose hope that you would become a father again, or like, because it's the second one? So like, what was going through your mind?
I didn't actually lose hope that, we wouldn't have another one, but I was thinking she might not want to have another one because of not knowing about the first one, but then knowing about the second one and hearing the heartbeat. And then a lot went through my mind because at the time when she had actually miscarried, I was on active duty in the military in Mississippi.
Right.
And I was trying to get home that day, and it took a lot for me to get home. I got on one plane to fly back. The engine wasn't right. So they cut us back. We had to unload the plane. They tried to fix it. We got on the runway again. Same thing. Finally, they said, well, we're going to go up and we're going to, instead of all 4 engines, we're going to take on off with 3. A lot of people stayed on the ground. I was determined to go home because I couldn't get an answer on the phone.
Right.
And when I got home, that's when I found out my wife had the miscarriage, which was your mom. She had the miscarriage. And my mama was in the hospital from a heart attack. I didn't know any of that when I got home. But the Lord put me on that airplane and did not give me the fear to get off because of the engine. Gave me that desire to get home to be with my family.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking, but I got home.
How did you get through it? Get close to the mic.
At the time when all that was going down, I had sort of a slight drinking problem, but I didn't let that control me. But what ended up happening, I would do things like, buy her flowers and roses and see the smile on her face, and then that made me feel better. It kept me from letting my drinking get to be too bad of a problem.
Yeah.
So it worked out pretty good when I saw her smiling.
Yeah.
And my mama got well and came home. So everything got me back to a normal feeling, but I hate that we did lose that one child.
Yeah.
Or the 2, but the one I know I heard the heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah. And so finding out that you had a daughter, because one thing I know, Mama didn't want to have children. So to go through 2 miscarriages, one, I can imagine very traumatic. And then finding out about Tamisha. Were you excited or were you like afraid? Was there any fear that you might lose her, or were you just so excited that you didn't even think about it?
I didn't think about that because when they said she was fine and everything going fine, I made sure everything was there to the best of my ability for her to have a smooth sailing when she was expecting Tamisha.
Yeah. And so when y'all had Tamisha, were you upset because she was a girl, not a boy?
No, because losing one, I told the Lord, if you give me a child safely and the child be healthy, I would take it, boy or girl, I was just satisfied. And like you had mentioned a little bit earlier too, your mom didn't want any kids. I wanted 4. And when she told me she didn't want any, I said, well, I can't ask you to marry me because I want 4. I said, but I'm willing to compromise. But before I ask you to marry me and walk the aisle, we have to know which way we're going to try to go.
Yeah.
So she thought about it for about 2 weeks, and she said, I'll give you 2. So I said, okay. So when she lost the first one that we didn't know about, she really didn't think about counting that. But when she lost the one that we did know about, I said, okay, we one down, one to go. So when we had Tamisha, I said, well, Lord, thank you. You made me a father. You gave me a healthy baby girl. And so one day, about 3 years later, well, not quite 3, about 2 years later, your mama said, well, I'm ready to have another baby. I said, well, you promised me 2, and you had one that you lost, and you have one. She said, but I promised you 2 babies, not 2 pregnancies. I said, okay. And I went to work. And now we have you.
How did you? What was your feelings when you found out you was having a boy?
Oh, I was just as happy as I was when they told me Tamisha was a girl. I was happy, and I said, now, whether he looked like me or not, I'm going to teach him to be the best man I can teach him to be and try to live the example in front of him. And that's why you never seen me during my drinking days. And your sister was too young to know.
To remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Because she was about 17 or 18 months when I quit. And then you saw me when I smoke a pipe. But then I quit that. And I quit that. You was about 8 years old.
Yeah. I remember the pipe. I used to hate the smell of the pipe. But yeah, I remember that. So what was faith like for you, growing up and even during that time? Like, was it a big deal to you, or?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Even though I slipped out and did some things I shouldn't have done, but I never got hooked on drugs,
Thank God.
doing illegal drugs and stuff. I never got out there and started trying to gang bang and do all this stuff.
Thank God.
Because number one, that ain't a good life. Number two, you can end up getting killed and have a short life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going on 65 years old. So I got 5 more years and a few months before I reach life expectancy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And anything beyond that is totally a great blessing. And so faith to me coming up was you learn and listen from your parents, and you go to church, you listen, and you learn from your church teaching and Sunday school teaching. And it gives you something in your heart to look forward to when you get grown, and during the time you start having family of your own, you teach them, give you a lot of wisdom. And then when you die, you hope to hear the Lord say, well done.
Yeah.
Because number one, I always tried to ask him before I did anything, even when I done stupid stuff.
Right.
I prayed. Although
Yeah.
I didn't, I would do stupid stuff like pray for him to take care of me while I get drunk.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
I could have went to jail. One man decided, he was a police officer, he decided to take me home. Should have cut me to jail, drunk driving.
Wow.
But he took me home.
He took you home.
He felt sorry for him. I had joined the military, getting ready to leave too, and he was a veteran. He said, well, I'll take you home. I told him my daddy going to whoop me. He said, that's even better. I'll take you home.
He said, I'll do that. So how far back do you know our family history?
I know a lot of it way far back, some of it into the slavery time up to now. Mm-hmm. And some I might have one understanding, and somebody else in the family might have understood the story a little different. But we still had a lot of the same names and people, and did, we know what they did. And on my father's side, my grandfather, he was not a slave. His father may have been, but I think he got out, slavery was over when he was young. And I don't know if my great-grandmother was a slave or not. But on my mother's side, my great-grandfather was a slave. I do know he was, but his wife, from my great-grandmother, she was not a slave. She was born into it, but she was a real small child when slavery was over. But my great-grandfather on my mother's side, he was actually a slave, and he did work a little bit, but he was like 13 when it was over.
Do you know where our name comes from? Yeah, obviously. Slave owner, but
the McKnight name, it comes from two different ways. Because there was some white McKnights that owned slaves, and there was an Indian McKnight. The name comes from both ways. We have some Indian in us from the Indian McKnight, and we have, the master's blood in us too from the McKnight of him, him. And he, plus, they, during the slavery time, they named you after them. You got for their first name they gave you and their last name to show where you belong.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know we had some Indian in us. I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't know. For sure.
We had a little Indian and white on both sides, the STs and the McKnights. Because on the ST side, we came from Granville County area, and before slavery was over, our forefathers that were slaves were members of Brassfield Baptist Church in Creekmore, over there on 96 Highway. And there's a lot of tombstones out there of the slave owners' families that has the ST's name on it. And they have a lot of other members of our church names out there that was, owned by those people there before slavery was over. And then once slavery was over, that's when we started Rock Spring. And you see out there, we got the Landers, the Jenkins, the Birds, the STs. A lot of those names that now you see in Rock Spring are over there at Brassfield, because that's where we came from.
So our family was part of the starting of Rock Spring?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that. Okay.
Before you lose your train of thought, or before I lose mine, rather.
Yeah.
My great-grandparents are buried on Rock Spring property. I don't know where the graves are.
Oh, wow, really?
I didn't know that. My grandfather would go down there, but he would never let us walk down there with him. And he would stay down there about 30 minutes and come back. He would never let nobody go with him. so we never knew where their graves were.
It might be by a tree.
It might be, and then that tree could be down by now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think my grandmother ever knew.
Mm. Wow. They didn't have caskets, did they? Or you don't know?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I just know they're in the cemetery down the road, what they call the Oddfellow Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
They're in that area
Mm-hmm.
because all of that land wasn't ours at one time,
Mm-hmm.
but some of it was. And then later on, probably about 25 or 30 years ago, we bought some more of that land down there.
Mm-hmm.
So that spreading that cemetery out some.
Mm-hmm.
But my great-grandfather and grandmother and your great-great-grandfather and grandmother is out there.
Yeah. Okay. I never knew that. I know we our family is from that area and also from Franklin County.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do know that. So the Estes, that's grandma's side.
Granville County, yes.
Granville County. And then the Franklin County is
McKnight. And we were actually supposed to be Davis if my grandfather's father would have married my grandfather's mother.
Mm.
She had him out of wedlock. Mm-hmm. She was a McKnight.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Davis.
Mm. Wow. So all the teachers started to spill out. We should have been named Davis.
I'm surprised that one question.
I didn't ever know that.
One question you never asked me about who was the last slave in the McKnight family.
Well, I know that. It's your daddy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And
I was going to bring it up, but it was
just. And by you talking about it, a lot of people say, how could your daddy have been the last slave in the McKnight family? But nobody knew at the time in our area that South Carolina, slaves were free, but then the governor, the mayors, and sheriff deputy, and the sheriff himself allowed some people to still have illegal slave farms. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather lost his first wife after 14 years, and my dad was about 10 years old. My grandfather working at the sawmill, mm-hmm. and my grandfather's uncle was babysitting. Now, he used to be a slave himself, my grandfather's uncle. Mm-hmm. And so when the man came up and asked him what he wanted for that boy right there, he told him, what boy? That boy right there, talking about my father. He said, that boy ain't for sale. And from what I could understand, the man cracked the whip. My dad was sold. Mm-hmm. He didn't hit him with it, but he scared him.
Yeah, he heard that.
And my great great grandfather or great 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 grandfather, however he was, uncle, however he was, sold my dad, and he was gone 5 years. Mm. When he left, he was in the 4th grade. When he came back, he was 15 years old. Mm.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. See.
That year was around 1938 when that happened. It was on to like 1942.
Yeah. It was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even thought of.
Oh, no, I wouldn't even thought of. My dad would probably thought that was the end of his life.
It was the end of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
God. So I know I recently found out through about our your grandfather. My great-grandfather, but your grandfather was in ministry, right?
He was a deacon.
He was a deacon.
Yes,
right?
He wasn't a minister.
Okay. So who in the family were like in ministry? I know Uncle Anthony. That's pretty much all I know.
I don't think any of my great-grandfathers or grandfather on the McKnight side, I know my grandfather wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I don't think his father or any of his great-grandfathers or anything were ministers, but there may have been a couple of his uncles or somebody he never said a whole lot about that might have been in the ministry. Mm-hmm. And I know my grandfather, Ed McKnight, he couldn't read nothing but the Bible and the Sunday school books and his name. Mm-hmm. You give him the same words out of the Bible into another book, he couldn't tell you what it was. Mm. But you give him the Bible, he could read it. Yeah. Sunday school book, he could read. He taught Sunday school. He taught the Bible. He named all these names in the Bible, just like I always have heard them being named. Mm. He only went to school one day of his life.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's pretty amazing, though. He's able to read all that with just one day of schooling.
He learned how to sing notes.
Mm. Yeah. So where does the singing come from? our family?
My grandmother on my mama's side would sing. She sung. And on my father's side, that's where a lot of it came from through the McKnights. Because my grandfather, like I just mentioned, he sung notes. He knew how to play the piano. He knew how to read notes. And he taught a lot of note choirs in the Franklin County area. He taught a lot of them in the, I think most of them in Franklin County, but one was in Wake County he taught. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And he would sit down and teach you every note and show you where it raised and go down and everything. He knew music. He just, and he stuck with it all the way till he got too old. He would sing notes and then come back and sing the words. And then when people started buying pianos and guitars, he could play a banjo and a piano.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Probably where I want to learn how to play a piano from.
Well, my daddy played the guitar, and I didn't know it till long after he was dead. Him and his brother Steve McKnight, they played guitars. One played lead, the other one played bass.
I know that. I've been. You can ask me. I've been saying I wanted to play a guitar and piano for the longest, but I might just need to pick it up and do it because it might be in the blood.
I still have my guitar that I bought 39 years ago in July of 1986.
Oh wow. Okay. So pivoting a little bit away from family. Well, still family, but just shifting focus a little bit. So I want to ask a question about your career. So you were a truck driver for how many years?
Counting the time I drove in the military and time I drove a little bit part-time before I went full-time, you can say about 38 to 40 years.
Yeah. So how long were you in the military?
I was in the military from 1981, January 15, 1981 to June 15, 1989.
So so being in the military, then also being a truck driver, how did your career affect your role as a father?
It didn't, because in the military, after I finished all my active duty training, came back in the reserves, and we would go active duty whenever they, gave us our summer camps or they called us to go to Fort Bragg for something. We would go active duty then, but I was, my main job in the military was a cook, but driving a truck was secondary because you always had to transport something or somebody or things, because when we had to go out in the field, you had to put all your kitchen equipment out there and set up a kitchen tent and make everything out there was intense. So you had to transport all of that stuff and set it up, dig trenches around it so when it rained, you wouldn't get flooded out. And then when you got ready to leave that, tear it all down, clean it, put it up. Right. But as a truck driver, for my primary job as a civilian, I loved it because I had gotten to a point to where I don't mind taking orders from people, but it was easier to be in that truck and be your own boss. Even though I was working with somebody and for somebody, as long as I did my job, I didn't have a lot of hassle.
So what was some of the challenges as being a truck driver and a father that you faced?
When I was out there running long distance, not being home. But I always tell people, there's no excuse for not being in your children's life because you're on the road. Because you didn't know what I was doing, but I called you and helped you with your homework on the phone. And I would go out and buy these long distance phone cards. So when I called home, once I got off the phone, the bill was already paid. And I help you on your homework, help your sister, talk to your mama. And then at Christmas time, when I was out that year, we did the Christmas that we always do over the phone. Instead of doing it at home live, we done it over the phone. So I stayed in your life when I was on the road, just like I did when I got local job driving and being at home to be able to be there looking you right straight in the face.
Right. Is there anything that you regret thinking back on your career?
Not as a truck driver as far as that, because at the time when I had to go out over the road and make money, I had to do it to keep from losing everything because I had gotten laid off, and your mama got laid off the same day I did. And so by me knowing something about trucks, I went on and got fully certified then, and I took the first thing smoking to make money enough to keep us going until I was able to get a job that I could be home more. And so I don't regret any of it because I knew what the outcome would have been had I not did it and didn't find another job that would pay as much money as what was needed at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the question is, were you a good father? But I would rephrase it as like, do you consider yourself as being a good father, and why?
At times I do because I was in your life and your sister's life all the way through, even up to now. And then sometimes I felt like I failed you because certain things I felt like you all deserved, I couldn't afford. But I had to put the basic stuff first. And then the few things that I could get that y'all wanted, I did. And the things that I couldn't get, you made it easier because a lot of your little action figures that you wanted, I couldn't afford to buy, you made your own. And so I just went on along with that and helped you to get the stuff that you could get when I could give it to you. But you used to make your own little action figures and paint them and everything.
Yeah, I used to draw. I used to draw out my Power Ranger action.
And I used to go in there and play with you with them, just like, they were bought from the store,
Right.
But deep down inside, it was sort of painful knowing that I couldn't really get you that. And then when I did get one, you just had one, but there were about, 6 or 7 Power Rangers?
Right.
You might have had one that you didn't make, and then you might have got another one later on. By the time you'd have got all of them, you'd have been got out of the Power Rangers. And the same with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
You did get 1 or 2, but you didn't get everything like that, but you did get something.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to put Tamisha out here. But when she got pregnant at, how was she? 17? Did you feel like you failed as a father in that?
When she first told me, it hit me like a ton of bricks. But then she made it easier when I asked her one question. Did he force you or did you let him? She said, I let him. Then my second question, what was the most powerful question, was how long have you known before you were able to come to me and talk to me? She said about a month. My heart went out to her. I said, she done suffered enough.
Yeah.
And I took and hugged her. And I said, and at that time, we were homeless.
Yeah.
And we were living with family. And I said, no matter what I have to do, I'm going to get this family back on our feet again. Because your mama had gotten sick, and that's how we lost everything. After I had did all the other stuff to get us going, and she was working with me. Then when her cancer came, bills and medical stuff. So I told your sister, I said, you have this baby. Don't worry about anything else, what anybody say. Because I'm your daddy. I'm going to do what I got to do. And you saw me go out and get 3 jobs instead of 1.
Yeah.
And we got back in our own place. Got everything going, got our cars. We didn't get the same cars back, but we got cars in place of the ones we lost. And everything got back, to normal. Only thing is I was working 3 jobs and your mama Yvette was working.
Yeah.
And when Kayla came, she came in time for your sister to graduate high school and start college in the fall. And so what ended up happening, she called me one day. I was on my way home. She said, Daddy, have you passed the store yet? I said, no. She said, can you stop and get the baby some Pampers and some milk? I said, yeah. I said, on what size Pampers? Because she is growing, and I know the other one was a little small, so she told me. I said, okay. And I said, same type milk? She said, yeah. So I went on and got the formula, bought enough for about 2 weeks, and bought a whole big box of Pampers. And when I got home and I gave it to her, and I had also bought some, folks used to call it Tabram or something, the little, cereal you put in the milk. I had bought 2 boxes of that and had bought her some baby food. And then, no, she wasn't old enough to eat baby food then. But and then your mama said, Dad, I feel bad. I mean, not your mama, your sister. Said, Dad, I feel bad. I said, what do you mean you feel bad? I'm calling you and asking you to do something that's not your responsibility. I said, but I told you I was going to do what I got to do to take care of you and this baby. She said, but and you will. She said, but I'm going to get me a job. I said, you don't have to. She said, yeah, I feel like I do. She said, because you showed me what it takes to take care of your family. And she said, you don't complain. Anytime I ask you for anything, you say, okay. I said, well, that's what a father and a grandfather are supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to go out there and try to ridicule you or her. And if something happen or y'all do something that might make some people feel ashamed, I don't feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Because that's why I asked you about that parable earlier. The prodigal son messed up everything his father gave him. Went out there and squandered it away on riotous living, women, drinking, clowning, cutting up.
Yeah.
Got to where he had to go out and eat with the pigs to keep from starving to death. So he came back home, begged his father for a job as a servant. His father did like I would have done. Came up and hugged his son, told him I love him, brought him back into the fold.
Yeah.
Never turned his back on him.
Never. Yep. Never did. Never did. Yeah. So I won't just leave Tamisha out there because, but I know one of the moments in my life that I would say it was a defining moment for me was when I had reached out to you when I thought I had gotten one of my ex-girlfriends pregnant, and the fear, the terror was just, everything was just in me. And I remember telling Mama, and she was disappointed, but at the same time, it was kind of funny, her response, because she was like, look at Tamisha.
Right.
You didn't learn
right.
She's like, why you didn't just pay attention to what she's doing? Don't you see how hard it is? But, I just remember just feeling so bad and feeling so terrible. And honestly, this is kind of where I got to start watching Joel Osteen. So thank you, Joel. But I started watching Joel Osteen, and he started helping me to shift my mindset about it, because I'm not gonna lie, the abortion came up as an option only because I was scared of the outcome. And I remember getting into an argument, and it was like, no, we're gonna do that, so and so I was just freaking out and scared. And I just remember sitting down talking to you when I finally told you, and you just sat down on the bed. You was like, you're going to figure this out. It's like, because it was literally my senior year, about to go to college, about to do everything. So I'm like, my whole life is ruined. Like, about to have this child and all this stuff. But you said pretty much like, you're going to go to school, you're going to get you a job, and you're going to handle your responsibility as a man. It's like, you're going to take care of this child, and you're going to go to school and do your thing. And hearing that and just sitting down and talking to you, you didn't get upset, you didn't raise your voice, you didn't try to whoop me or anything like that. You helped me.
You're too big to be whooped in.
I mean, you could have got me.
You're going on 18 years old.
You still could have got me.
But you remember one thing I did tell you?
What's that?
I said, son, you did forget one thing I told you to do. You said, what? I said, in the midst of a storm, put on your raincoat. Because I told you, a lot of times, as young people, we get into situations at the spur of the moment. And those activities, we don't think about the outcome, because we at that moment feeling like, hey, I'm going to just have a good time.
Right.
But then later on, you be like, what did I do?
Yeah.
And, out there, I always tell every young man, in the midst of the storm, put on your raincoat. Because I can't tell them not to do it, because they're going to do it.
Right.
Because they'll talk to you about not doing it.
Right.
Talk to your sister about not doing things.
Right.
And it still happened.
It still happened.
And see, my parents talked to me about stuff. It still happened.
Yeah.
But I didn't ever get into those situations scared like you all were at all.
Yeah. I mean, it was just funny, because I think about those days, because we went through a lot from being homeless, and I'm gonna ask you a question about that in a second, but I just remember going through all of those days and just seeing how everything was, and I was just like, man, it was just different. And then, having going through all of that, and then sitting down and talking to you, and then you just kind of redirecting me and just saying, hey, you're gonna be all right. He was like, because to me at the time, I felt like my whole world was coming to an end and everything was just terrible, and I was just, the worst son ever. I've let mom down, let dad down, let everybody down. Tamisha's sitting there kiki and haw because she's not the bad child no more. So I'm like the golden child.
In her words, she taught you well.
Right. But just being steered in the right direction, and then being steered in the right path as a young man, it did a lot. It shaped a lot for me in that day, because I just remember like going forward from that day. I was like, you're right. I can handle my responsibilities. If it came down to it, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to, do whatever I have to do to take care of the baby, to take care of whatever the situation and everything. But, thank God, there was no baby. But at the same time, I had already made it up in my mind. I was like, I can do it. I can handle the situation no matter what. And so thank God it didn't happen. But at the same time, I just think about that because it solidified in me, how to be a man, how to handle your responsibility, even when you make a mistake or you feel like you've done something wrong. So
Yeah.
So I said I was gonna ask you a question about that, about the homeless thing, because, having so when we moved to Fuquay, and I don't tell people this a lot, only people like my friends and different ones know, but like when we had moved to Fuquay, there was a lot of hope. There was a lot of excitement because you had just started a new job, and we had moved into this big, beautiful house, and it was like literally my favorite house
I love
of all.
that.
Right, I loved
Yeah.
it too, and just we had just moved to Fuquay. Everything was good, and everything was great, and then tragedy strikes, and
Yeah.
then we're homeless. And so, how did that make you feel? Was that like a low moment as a father in your life?
For maybe a week.
For maybe a week, yeah.
Yeah, because I had been quit drinking, won't smoking or anything, and when that happened, I was like, I can't be a failure. I got to think positive, although it looked like I'm failing. I had to think positive, and so I did. I just said I'm gonna let all this stuff go and find somebody that let us sleep in their house for a fee. So we never slept outside, never slept in the car. And we always had a roof over our head that was somebody else's, but they got their money. We was able to have somewhere to sleep,
Yeah.
somewhere to eat, somewhere to take good hot baths and change clothes.
Yeah.
And then when I did like I told you to do, figure it out.
Yeah.
And I figured it out.
Yeah.
And then we move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that same thing today. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was how long was that? We were about 2 years,
It was
3
almost
years.
a year that we were homeless.
Okay. Yeah, it was almost a year. Yeah. Because we moved
It was
from
about a year and it was
About a
about
year,
18 months. Yeah, about 18 months.
yeah. Because we had moved from Fuquay, moved to Clayton, then moved to Durham, and then we moved.
our own
Finally got our
place.
own place after a long, long journey. It was a
Now,
long journey.
when we first got to Fuquay, that was ours
Yeah.
until, like you said, tragedy hit. Then we moved in with family. Then the one we were living in had an accident with his truck. And then we all had to move from there over to Clayton. Then we went from Clayton to Durham. And that's when I was able to say, well, I'm back on my own stomping grounds now. I know how to maneuver.
Yeah.
And that's when I did everything I told y'all I was going to do, getting them 3 jobs. I went and got them and took care of everything. And a lot of people say, how did you sleep? Now, that was something I prayed and asked God to give me the strength to do. And all the places where I used to go and pick up freight, which was mail. I had 3 different jobs hauling mail. 2 tractor and trailer, 1 on a straight truck. And everybody knew my situation. So while they were loading me up, they let me sleep.
Yeah.
And then when I come home, I get about 4 hours of sleep. And then I go back to work. And then when I finally would get a day off, I would spend as much time with y'all as I could. Then not get me as much sleep as I could, too.
Right.
And y'all were right there. Okay, Dad, you need to go get you some sleep. I said, okay. And I go on. Y'all didn't try to hold me up.
Yeah.
You spent the time we could spend together and then reminded me if I was going too far that I needed some sleep.
Yeah.
And I knew then y'all really loved me. You weren't about the money and having things over having me around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, talk about your personal values.
Number one, I value the relationship with Christ, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Number two, I value my life as a person that try to do everything right and try to be an example, not for just you and my grandchildren and your sister and my grandchildren that she have, but for my daughter-in-law, my son-in-law, for my friend that I'm dating now, and all the young people that look at me now. I try to live a life to where they might not want to be just like me, but find something positive to do like I did, to be a good man in the way they are led to be.
Yeah.
And that's my most prized joy in doing things, to show people, no matter how you're going to be in life, be good, be a Christian first, be good at what you do, and take care of your family to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And always make sure that whoever is looking at you see the positive stuff in you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's your favorite memory of, I would say, what was your favorite memory from like our childhood, from me and my sister's childhood?
One of the memories I love is that crazy song you wrote. Mom and Daddy looked in the mirror, and what did I see?
Two little fat people looking back at me. It was based off of Rance Allen's song.
Yeah.
What was the name of the song?
And you know,
Miracle Worker.
When you put that on the family chat the other day, I got a good laugh because you were so comical as a small child. That made my day when I came home. And one thing you did say one time, you said, "Daddy, you supposed to be the head of the house, right?" I said, "Yes, son. Why?" "Well, why your head ain't out there on the mailbox?" I'm like, I got to keep it on my shoulders. But you know, you was a small child and you didn't know the full reason why I didn't put my head on the mailbox to show folks on the head of that house. But my actions in the neighborhood showed folks as I was the head of my house.
Yeah.
But you know, you could have been a comedian. I put it that way.
I tell people that all the time, but they don't believe me. They say I'm in a better field.
But you know, one thing I'm gonna say this, not to throw you under the bus or not to make you feel crazy or anything, but you know my favorite saying about you.
Well, you whip me into the pulpit.
Whip you from the foolishness all the way to the pulpit. I raise you from my belt to the pulpit. That's my saying.
You've only had to whip me maybe
About 4 times.
4 times. I can count on one hand.
Yeah, but in Tanisha, I might have got her twice more than I did you.
You got her a lot more than I got it.
Not a whole lot more.
Both
About
y'all.
2. I think I whipped you about 4 times. Her maybe 6. And she probably
you got to count 2 hands.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. One hand, the whole hand, and a finger on the neck. So.
Right.
But see, she was the first child, and you learned a lot on what not to do by seeing the whoopings that she got. But you got a lot of your own whoopings, like the map you drew on your wall. I gave you a break on that, then you hid in the closet and drew another one. No, you drew your little girlfriend's name on the wall.
She wasn't my girlfriend. It was just a little white girl I had a crush on.
You had your name, you had a little heart with an arrow, I think, going through it. And then
I don't even know why. I don't even know why I had that, because she wasn't even all that cute.
You then hid it, and when I went in that closet, I went there looking for you a jacket or something and saw it. I said, now I scolded him real good and talked to him about that. Now, I mean, your whole wall was a whole city map almost.
I had drew the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
The whole street and everybody's house.
Yeah.
I drew our house, Murky house, Ashley and them house down the street, Miss Stephanie house, Stephen and them house across from us. I drew everybody house.
Right. And I felt like, you know, being a dad don't mean you always got to whoop the child. So I sat down and gave you a long talking to.
Yeah, I'd rather get the whooping.
And then you messed right around that and thought you were going to hide and do some more writing on the wall. That time I said, no, I got to get him now. I think that was the last time I got you.
I think so. I can't count.
A lot of times after that, all I had to do is say, TJ, you what, Daddy? Calm down. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
No, I know the last time I got you.
What?
That they whooped Tamisha when her and Yvette was in there, and she took the belt from Yvette.
Oh. And
Yvette was down there, and they in the floor scrambling.
That was a strange morning.
And Tamisha.
that was early in the morning. It was like 6 a.m.
And Yvette hollered, give me that belt back. I went in there and took the belt and whooped her. And then when I went downstairs, you gonna bristle up and poke out your chest. What you doing hitting my sister? I put you on my knee and tore you up. That was the last time. And Yvette come running down and said, what you whooping him for? I said, because he's gonna try to get on me for whooping Tamisha.
We were all late for school that day.
But you know what? Later on, I realized I caused you to get that whooping because I told you, I didn't tell you the exceptions. I told you, I said, if anybody bother your sister, you big enough now to help take care of her, and she big enough to take care of you. But I forgot to tell you, me and your mama were not on your list of people you need to try to protect her from like that. But I did go back and tell you a little bit later, me and your mama gonna get her, but anything else,
that was the most wildest morning. That morning was chaotic. I just remember waking up, and then we were supposed to get ready for school, and then Tamisha and mama ended up got the scuffle and doing something, and then she getting a whooping, and then you came in there and whooped Tamisha, and then
she took the belt from your mama.
And then somehow I ended up downstairs. I had to be like 6,
no,
between
you're
6
a
and 8.
Older than that. You about 9, I believe. 8 or 9. I think that happened. That happened
was
right
before
mom.
That was before she got sick. Yeah, so I was like
7.
about 8, 7 around that time, because I just remember just going downstairs, and then I don't even remember saying anything to you. All I remember was just getting whooped. Because I was laughing at Tamisha getting whooped. The next thing I was getting whooped. I don't even remember. I don't know that. It was just funny because we were supposed to be catching the bus, and then the bus was gone.
Yeah, your mom. She let y'all stay home that day, didn't she?
No, we ended up going to school, but we went late. It was late.
It was right before I walked out the door when you made me give you the whooping. Lord have mercy.
It was a chaotic household.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad, though.
But it's funny now.
It's funny now.
Yeah, because like sometimes when I was a kid and got a whooping, now I think back on it, it's funny like the time me and my brother were playing football. And we both been washing dishes, and we down there playing football. Daddy sneaked downstairs, came in the kitchen. As soon as I said, hook 1, hook 2, hit. And when we came up getting ready to tackle each other, Daddy hit Michael with the belt. Michael jumped up. Wow, Daddy down here. And then when Daddy got finished giving us a whooping, we couldn't even cry because it was so funny. And then he went back upstairs. He told Mama, yeah, them boys were down there playing football. But I made the touchdown.
He got the last word.
He got the last word.
He got the last word. Yeah, I was a good kid. I didn't get that many whoopings. I was always scared to get whoopings because I don't like pain, and I don't like being yelled at.
Yeah,
so.
When you said that about the last word, that reminded me of something my grandfather told me.
What's that?
He said, son, you getting ready to get married. Now I said, yes, sir. He said, well, in your house, you the man. You supposed to have the last word. I said, well, sometimes the wife ain't going to let you just do all that. Well, boy, you got to get the last word. Your wife tell you to shut up. You say, yes, ma'am. She said, right now. You say, okay. She happy because she told you to shut up. You happy because you got the last word. Right. That made a lot of sense.
It made a lot of sense.
Because, if you don't argue with a woman, she ain't going to argue with you.
Right. Yeah, she ain't.
Mm-mm.
It's true. It's true. I'm not even going to look at Misha because.
Now, your wife is my favorite short queen.
It better be.
Yeah.
She the only short queen.
Yeah.
No, but I'm glad we had this conversation. I learned a lot of things I did not know about the family. I didn't know a lot of things. But at the same time, a lot of who you are and what you have instilled into me is a lot of the stuff that I try to instill into my kids and instill into, especially Morel as he's getting older, and try to be that consistent force in his life. So,
right.
Preferably he don't go through the things that we went through growing up.
Well, and then see, you never asked me anything much about my PTSD. But, your son don't have to see some of the stuff you saw. Yeah. And I didn't realize, because I won't, striking out at you or Tamisha, but I didn't realize how it affected you all.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that I was doing was not dangerous to you physically, but mentally it was, because it was scaring you.
Yeah. But and I think, like, even now, being older, like, looking back at that, I would never have understood that as a kid, like the way I would understand it now, because
Right.
even like when I remember, like I do remember like when you and Mama got into it, and then she left, we stayed with Aunt Peggy for a little bit, and
You were about ready to come back to the PTSD one.
right. Well, I just remember being like that whole period of when y'all were separated, and I was just like, it was just weird, and I just remember I was thinking to myself, who would I like to stay with? I'd rather stay with my daddy than my mom. Whatnot. It's just weird stuff you think about.
Yeah.
But I just remember like that going through all of that and just thinking now back on it was like I never really thought about putting the two together with you being in the military, having PTSD from a lot of the things that came out of the military and how that had effect in your life as
Right.
you were like in your early 30s, early to mid 30s, and really trying to figure out life. Like I never really thought about that or put that into or took that into account. Even now, like even I'm mid 30s and everything like that.
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. And even seeing like with my kids and all this stuff, like because a lot of those things is the reason why I don't do a lot of things with the kids, like or. Misha be like, you should, because Misha be like, you should whoop the kids or you should yell at them more. Like I just can't. It's like I don't want to scare them, but at the same time, it's like a lot of that comes from that. And now thinking back on it, it's like, oh, I never knew that you were struggling with that or that was an issue because of the military, because of those
Right.
things.
And
But it makes sense.
When you asked me earlier about, anything that I had done, and I told you I never did no illegal drugs or anything. I was close, but I never did. But
Okay.
what I ended up doing, I think I told you I OD'd 2 or 3 times on those weight loss pills that you could legally buy. And when you take them, they would calm you down and give you all this other energy. And it made me start feeling so good about myself. I just would, instead of taking one a day, I was taking 4 and 5 a day. That thing, I'm waking up in the hospital. After about that 3rd or 4th time, like, now something. This ain't gonna work. It's take your life. Anything you do like that, although it's legal to buy it, use it, you can still abuse it.
Yeah.
Because you can abuse eating food, you can abuse yourself drinking water.
Yeah.
And I did that because I'm like, it makes me feel good and it's legal to buy. I can take it right in front of a police officer, he wouldn't do a thing. But then when I go to the hospital and they finally wake me up, they couldn't even figure out what I was
going on. Yeah.
But that's what made me start understanding I had a problem and doing something about
Do
it.
something about it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the nuggets of wisdom. I'm pretty sure it will go a long way with a lot of different people in understanding, our family and also understanding the dynamics of what it's like to be a man and a father and leader in those respects, because I think all of it goes hand in hand. But at the same time, it's like, just seeing, understanding those things from you, it helps me to put pieces together of my life as well too. It's like this is why I'm the way I am. I know I'm crazy, but we thank God that I ain't cuckoo. But yeah. So any last words you want to say?
Yes, I just want to tell all men, don't forget to have fun with your children too. Teach them the right way. Teach them, be a disciplinarian if you have to. Be stern with everything you're teaching them in life. Be firm, stern, and get the message across. And then have fun along the way. Because my dad, although sometimes he would be, intoxicated. We didn't know it.
Yeah.
Back then, almost every man smelled like cigarettes and beer, or either cigarettes and wine. And my dad would be intoxicated, but he out there still trying to fly a kite with us. Running across the yard trying to get that kite up in the air, and that kite got maybe 6 feet high and fell. But he was there.
Trying.
He was trying. We never would know when he was drinking. And he could be sometimes so drunk, he didn't even remember being out there doing that stuff with us, but he never gave us a hard time.
Yeah.
And he never, when he drove a car intoxicated, he drove just as straight as any sober man.
Yeah.
And we never knew.
He out there drinking and driving. Y'all ain't
Right.
risking y'all lives. Y'all didn't even know.
If the police pull you over,
Yeah.
most times they'd make you get in the back seat, let your wife drive.
Yeah.
They didn't want Colonel in jail like they do now. And unless you did something like had a bad wreck or something.
Yeah.
But a lot of things I tell people: have fun with your kids, but be their friend when you at certain times. But always be their father. Always, if you're a woman, be the mother, and if you're a single parent, you have to take the role of both. And you always take out the time after you teach your children the right way. Each day, have some fun with them too. Each day.